So again, welcome. We are really pleased to host our second Ferncast webinar, where you will learn today how to integrate podcasting in a radio station workflow. Our webinar today will last 45 minutes, and there will be some time at the end for a Q&A session, but please put your question in the chat during the event so we can try to answer them before the end. Let me introduce you the speakers of the day. So Detlef Wiese, CEO of Ferncast. Tobias Dornbusch, our product expert. Myself, in charge of marketing and communication for Ferncast. And we are delighted to have today a special guest speaker, Gernot Link, system engineer in the program distribution department at Deutschlandradio. Let's have a look now at the agenda of the webinar. First, I will share with you some podcast insight. Then Detlef Wiese will give an overview of Ferncast history and all the application aixtream software is covering. Gernot Link from Deutschlandradio will explain how Deutschlandradio successfully automated podcast creation in their radio workflow. Then Tobias will show you aixtream user interface and he will demo audio and demand processing for podcasting and media libraries. And at the end, we will share with you our new development software plans for 2022. And there will be room for questions at the end. But please use the chat. Also, it's also nice to answer questions in the go. Let me share with you some insight on the podcast market. I think, as we all know, the market is still increasing because of internet usage and smartphone, and also the pandemic drives the podcast usage, and it will still be growing. Some key figures maybe to have in mind. So there will be 505 million podcast listeners worldwide in 2024. The podcast market will be $95 billion by 2028. A question, which countries have embraced podcasts the most? So the first one is South Korea, and then European countries like Spain, Ireland, Sweden. US is number 5. In terms of podcast genre, I would say that it's a bit equal in the content. News, politics, or more lifestyle, comedy, fashion, food, art, or specialized topics. If we have a closer look to the podcast audience, in Germany, for instance, you have 25% of the people who listen to podcasts on a weekly basis are between 15 and 25 years, but we can say that it's not anymore the younger population which is listening to podcasts. It's really growing now in all the population. The podcast industry is increasing at a rapid pace. It's not going to slow down for the time being, and there is a huge opportunity for the radio station there. Now, thanks for your attention. I will give now the words to Detlef, our CEO, who is going to present you the Ferncast history.
Thank you, Virginie, for this nice introduction, also providing some data on the podcast market and industry. So yeah, it's titled Ferncast History, which sounds like a very long time, and in spite of the let's say, broadcast tradition development, which is really long ago. Ferncast is just started in 2018. So it's a bit more than 3-year young company. On the other hand, there are quite experienced people, co-founders and people working in the team of Ferncast. So the objective when we started Ferncast actually has been to develop software for, let's say almost any live audio application in the broadcast and the radio business. And we were happy to start with streaming from the application side, and then it has been growing over the years. We have gained quite a reasonable number of bigger broadcasters in Germany, public broadcasters, starting with Deutschlandradio in 2019 for doing all the audio streaming with all the different formats and protocols. And then from 2019 onwards, we're growing in terms of functionality towards DVB multiplexing, podcast creation, SIP communication, and a lot of functions. And so up to now, our team is about 10 people now, and we are continuous in touch with the broadcast market and our customers in very close relationship. And the software is growing, the company is growing, and it's a very good development which we have achieved so far. So I can give you a bit of an overview on the application side. So that's where we are positioned. We see ourselves as a very scalable software vendor in the streaming markets, providing a solution which can stream from 1 to more than 100 programs in a variety of formats, from MP3 to XHE, AC, and lots of protocols. Actually, the DVB multiplexing a bit legacy, but we were actually asked whether we could also do DVB multiplexing, and are doing this now for quite some reasonable amount of broadcasters. Podcast creation, I think one thing where our guest speaker, Gernot Link, will focus on, and also the secure transmission from the studio to transmitters. So studio to transmitter links and monitoring is something which is very important for us. On the next slide, we see also our focus in the SIP area and the communication area. So we support SIP communication according also to the EBU Tech 3328, but also combined with functions which are answering machines, SIP services, SIP servers actually, which we also handle for the EBU. And the interesting part for all those applications is that it's always the same UI and the similar workflow. So that means people using the software and have different applications benefit from actually once learning it, and then can deal with it on multi applications and have lots of solutions. So I give it back to Virginie now, the moderation.
Yeah, thanks, Detlef. I'm going now to give the floor to Gernot Link from Deutschlandradio. The German broadcaster has successfully implemented the Xstream on-demand option into its radio workflow, and Gernot Link is going to give now more details.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me here. I try to share my screen. Yes, thanks, Virginie, for the introduction. I work for Deutschlandradio as a system engineer in the Department of Programming and Distribution, and I'm responsible for multiplexing and encoding for the various distribution channels we have. Perhaps if you're not from Germany, you might be not so familiar. So let's just have a quick look who or what is Deutschlandradio. We are a nationwide German public radio broadcaster, and we're running 3 radio programs, the Deutschlandfunk, Deutschlandfunk Kultur, and Deutschlandfunk Nova. Basically, all 3 programs focuses on politics, information, culture, and current affairs. We are producing also high-quality radio plays and concerts. And we have 2 locations, one in Cologne and one in Berlin. Yes, and what we do, what kind of distribution channels we have. Yeah, I think this signpost makes it really clear what is going on in the broadcasting market at the moment. So everyone is searching for right strategies and right directions. So we do everything at the moment. So we have a big terrestrial DAB+ and FM networks with over 300 transmitter sites. We do DVB-S radio. We have, of course, our websites. We have all mobile native apps. We serve third platforms. We do podcasting, and we do also social media. So, but let's start looking at the encoding and online distribution. like we see it, and I wanted to give you some insights about our visions or our ideas concerning online distribution and encoding in focus. So if we do a topic environment of buzzwords, it would look like this perhaps. Perhaps some things are familiar. In contrast to the classical broadcast networks, we have in online distribution, we have a really big variety of standards, protocols, use cases, and also it's the market is really evolving pretty quick. So even for me, who tends to work like as a professional on these kind of themes, it's always a little bit. It's so much and it's growing so fast, so that it's hard to keep track on this part. So, but it's even more complex. So if you just push all the technical things, for example, to the left side, you have on the right side an opposite, that are various platforms that demand special streams, special kind of technical things. You might want to deliver some platforms with special audio. And so what we always were looking for, and that is where our cooperation with Detlef and Ferncast started. We are looking for kind of a toolbox or a generic tool which exactly fits in the middle. And we started thinking about some things on the things with live streaming, but it also can be adapted to podcasting, because we look for something, or our vision was to package individual audio for each platform, or for different use cases, for different titles, and for different platforms with the ability to be maximum flexible in sound processing, transport and container formats, codecs and bit rates, and especially metadata. And I just want to step in a little bit for the vision that we have. For example, if you look at different use cases, what do we have? We have, for example, stationary receivers. Perhaps some of you know this IKEA lamp, which has the Sonos speaker at the stand or at the foot. This thing is stationary. You won't carry it around, and this also will be accesses only Wi-Fi, where you at your home is Wi-Fi available. You have unlimited data volumes, and you have high and constant bit rates, and also you have fixed costs. In contrast, this is mobile applications that run on your phone. For example, we have a mobile usage. Your data volume is mostly limited, and your costs might depend on your usage, and your Wi-Fi is perhaps not always available. If you look at different titles, what does make sense for your encoding and also for your podcast or audio on demand encoding? It's really useful, and it totally makes sense to have a lossless or a high quality with a high dynamic range processing for your radio plays or concerts. But you must confess, it makes no sense at all to have, for example, your telephone interviews in a lossless quality. So there's needs to be a trade-off between data rate and audio quality that it makes sense. If you look at different platforms, for us, we have our own native applications, and it makes totally sense to provide your own applications with some unique selling points in terms like, for example, using the latest coding technologies optimized for mobile usage, for example, enable podcast chaptering, or for example, let the user choose his preferred audio quality. In contrast to that, we also serve and are present on third-party platforms. Perhaps you want to do something like add post rolls to your audio podcast to inform users about your native applications. So if you put all these demands together, and if you want to do a really individual packaged audio for each platform use case, and title. You need a solution that really, or we're looking for a solution that really automates all those workflows that are necessary for it. And we always like the flexibility we have with the Ferncast streaming tools, and we wanted basically to adapt all these flexibility to our on-demand and podcast creations. And as we talked to Ferncast, we just said, you're basically not far away from doing this, because you already have in your live encoders, you have the file sync and file sources. And let's just think a little bit about what needs to be in the middle, just like watch folders, just like how to handle metadata and trigger different encodings for different purposes. And how can we implement this kind of technology? We collected some ideas, and I want to have a quick look with you of the encoding system architecture, like we thought about and went to Ferncast and asked if they were able to do something like that. So what was really important for us, or on the left side, you see our production side or broadcast automations and from production side, and they deliver to us audio and metadata. So this is a pair which is always needed, and the metadata describes what is in the audio, what kind of audio type is it, and it's mostly like a XML format. And we have basically two sites, one in Berlin and one in Cologne, once I mentioned at the beginning. And we wanted to split virtual instances across our sites. So we don't want to have hardware anymore. We just want to run the applications in our data centers. Every site, for example, collects the audio on demand or podcast data from our stations located in Berlin and Cologne. And what was really important to us, that we are just flexible in the output. So every instance can output the encoded on-demand data to multiple destinations. And as you can see at this picture at the moment, all data is pushed to the encoding instances from across our sites and across our radio stations. And now every encoder works as a single encoder that pushes encoded audio data to multiple destinations. This is one application, but we wanted to add some redundancy in form that these two encoder instances on different sites know about each other. And we wanted to have either one primary fallback architecture. So this is the primary guy who does all the encoding, and this one down here jumps only in if this one fails. And we wanted to do to get one step further to be able to do a kind of load balancing between both instances, so that you can share resources like CPU and stuff across our sites and data centers we have at every location. And everything should be flexible and scalable, so it should be possible to add perhaps a third location or a third virtual instance of encoder machine that also outputs to multiple or end destinations. So this is the basic setup, and this setup with the strong redundancy was really important to us. If we now perhaps look a little bit in detail what we thought about doing in such an encoder instance, just we step in. We have, as I just mentioned, from production audio and metadata, and what was really important that we're just maximum that we're pretty versatile in our ingest, so that we can use different formats and different protocols to ingest data, either as push or pull workflow. So it depends what you're doing and how we're just involving on this part. And what really also was needed when you just look at the processing step, we have data coming from production to multiple protocols going into a watch folder or an input queue folder. You have the metadata mentioned to the audio, and which basically should be possible. It should be possible to control multiple encoding instances to achieve an individual audio or the goal for individual audio for each platform and each use case. So you have perhaps multiple sound processing controlled by metadata or by keywords hidden in the metadata or trigger words. And we have multiple encoding instances, for example, that are triggered on special keywords, and not even that are triggered on special keywords. It was really important to be really generic on parsing this XML file. So the guys from Ferncast have implemented an XPath parsing, so you can be really flexible with what you're doing. They implemented also regular expressions to pull these metadata informations that are controlling the encoding processings. And you're even able to do logical combinations of, if this keyword is there, but not this keyword, then please trigger encoding instance or encoding pipe, I don't know, HLS, for example, or XHEAC, or XHEAC with post-roll, for example. And what is also important for us, that we just hand through encoded audio and metadata, like the really flexible output or egress layer, to our multiple destinations like CDNs or CMS applications that are follow, and just further handling the publication and depublication workflows. So basically, we have all this done for all our 3 radio stations. They're just encoding audio triggered by keywords and just push them out to some destinations, like a CMS destination and, for example, a CDN. Yes, basically. Okay. What we also wanted to add is a kind of archive where you can do a backup and restore mechanism, because if something or some audio files get lost on their way through the internet, you'll always be able to restore them out from an archive, and just again trigger all the processings together with the metadata file you need, or the special audio demands. Yes. Basically, many thanks for your attention. I hope I could give you some insights and share our ideas of modern podcast creation and processing. If there are questions, feel free.
Thanks, Gernot, for your presentation. I don't know if we have some questions in the chat. One is coming now, Gernot, for you. Can you say something about the destination platforms? How do you reach them? How do you create the formats and obtain and control the quality there? Can you at all?
Basically, our actual workflow is that we're putting the output from the encoder. We split the output. We just upload our audio data to our CDN or web storages, and we hand over the metadata for the audio to our CMS or content management systems. And this content management system handles the podcast publication and depublication. For example, concerning time ranges. And it also creates RSS feeds, for example, podcast RSS feeds, which we share with our, for example, third-party platforms. And this CMS or content management system also manages the creation of data that is used for our APIs, for our native applications, for example. And it also manages the publication on our websites. But we serve third-party platforms mainly by RSS feeds, podcast RSS feeds, and these kind of RSS feeds are created by our content management system.
Okay, thanks. I see many questions, more questions coming for you. Do you run your solution on premises, or do you use already a virtual private cloud?
This is a good question. We don't run it. We do a hybrid solution. So it really depends on what kind of structure do you have and what kind of infrastructure do you run. We have a data center. We have guys managing all the data center stuff. We have our own cloud CDNs with long-term contracts. So we basically have the infrastructure to run this kind of encoding instances on our own virtual data center, on our own machines. So it's kind of hybrid solutions. We don't have it on-prem like we have servers in a mounted or something that just only do the on-demand or podcast processing. Neither have we just like software as a service, like cloud services, like podcast creators or hosters offer, like Podigy, or even guys from the video side like BitMoving or something. They're just doing all the encoding stuff in cloud. So, but it really depends on your infrastructure. How much know-how do you have? What is easiest to implement in your workflows? What fits your contract models? Do you need to tender? How much pain? If you need to tender, how much pain will, for example, provider change cost to you? And so you should. It's highly individual, I say, if you run it on premise or just book some encodings as software as a service. We are also too big, it needs special contracts. I just did a little research. We are just we have an output from about 100 gigabyte a month, which if you just break it down it's about, I don't know, 1,700 hours of audio each month for at 128 kilobits per second, which is a lot of stuff because we're just basically catching up all our on-air content and provide it for online distribution. So as I said, depends on your own workflows and your company.
Thanks for your answer. I have another question, Gernot. Do you use external sound processing, like hardware processor or VST plugins? And if so, how is that be interfaced with Ferncast, with aixtream?
For our live streaming instances, we have external hardware doing the sound processing. But sound processing for podcasts is, I guess, a hot topic at the moment. We're just using an external device, or we just try to implement using an external device at our broadcast automation system. But we also talk to Ferncast, and Ferncast also already implement some audio processing and loudness processing on their aixtream instances. And we're just at the moment checking what's better to use for us. And I hope that we can also involve together with Detlef and the guys from Ferncast this processing features, because I think at a centralized encoding instance, this is a really important features for the future distribution from podcasts. Because all different or third-party platforms, for example, have their own specification in terms of loudness and so on.
Okay, another question is it running full scale in production now?
Not yet. We're just running, but we're running cool things at the moment. It's half in production because we need or to rebuild all our audio on demand workflows that have established over the last 15 years. And this causes a lot of work to do so. So it starts with our broadcast automation system and ends with our player technology we embedded in our applications and websites. So, but what we're doing, and this is quite interesting, we serve some special audios and mainly high quality audio content for our websites and for HLS, for our websites and our native apps in HLS. And this kind of HLS and audio segmenting for this kind of podcast, this is done by the Ferncast installation at the moment. And so, as I said, we have special trigger words in our audio metadata, which says, okay, I'm an HLS or I should be an HLS audio. And then Ferncast takes this audio and does the HLS segmentation and processing and hands it over as a zip file to upload to our CDN. And our CDN can directly serve from this zip file to our applications like websites and mobile apps.
Just to continue, so before I will leave the words to Tobias, it's time for our quiz, our traditional quiz. As you can see, we have made nice Ferncast polo. Detlef is showing one. We have also new Ferncast t-shirt, so you have the chance to win one. And now here's the questions. In the list of countries where podcasts are the most popular, what is the position, the rank of Germany? If you remember correctly, when I show you some podcasts inside, Germany was not in the top 5. So I let you guess in which position. We will give the answer at the end. So stay until the end. You might win a nice t-shirt. I will now leave the floor to Tobias, who is going to show you Extreme user interface and demo the audio and demand processing for podcasting and media libraries.
Yeah. What I'm going to tell you in the next few minutes is, well, first I'm going to give you a very short introduction to aixtream itself. I know that a lot of our viewers currently, our participants, are probably already familiar with it, but obviously not all of them. So just so you have a basis of understanding of exactly what we're talking about to begin with. And afterwards, I'm going to show you specifically some on-demand processing, something that we rarely show or have shown so far. And also demonstrating some of the nice features that Gernot just talked about. So yeah, right now we're looking specifically at the dashboard, or one potential possible dashboard of aixtream. Appropriately enough, already set to the on-demand statistics, though right now you don't see much going on. This will change in a moment. But just to give you a general idea what the dashboard is about, it's simply a actually fully customizable monitoring and control hub that the user can build themselves. So as you can see right now on this example system that we're on, you have these various tabs. So this is like an overview of all the connections that are running and their status. Here's some volume control and level metering, general monitoring. So you see the audio signals with their respective level meters and so on. And all of these are set up ourselves. This is not a pre-made thing that always looks like this. And this also means that you can set up your specific dashboards or dashboard tabs however you happen to prefer, that works best for your workflow and use case. So if we were to create a new dashboard, this is the menu you would be getting for this, in fact. And you see these little things here that we call widgets. Those are basically the components that make up a dashboard. And now if I were to just click some things together, as I'm doing right now, and then click create, we have a new dashboard here, unnamed because I didn't give it a name. And then you have it here. Don't see much because most of these things require some configuration to show exactly what you need, but you get the idea, of course. But yeah, we're mostly here for the on-demand one, as we're going to see in a moment. The other concept from aixtream that I have to introduce you to for all of this to make sense is the pipe concept and pipes in general. Now, pipes is actually what we call the connection or call configurations, or in the case of on-demand, the processing chain, I guess you could say. So the idea is that a single pipe displays the entire process of whatever happens to a specific connection from the input, from the source to the sink, the output, destination, whatever it is, as this row of elements, as you can see here, for example, where each element is, of course, some kind of process, like, for instance, the AC is here, of course, the encoding, for example, or as you can see in this pipe here specifically, there's a URL input. So this means there's a stream from the internet that is taken as input, some remixing going on. So the channels are remixed accordingly. Volume control and level meter is set, and then it is turned into an HLS stream. Just as one example here. Now, for audio on demand specifically, we have to take a look at the templates actually, because you need to set up pipes very specifically for this. As you can see here, we have pipes that are simply on demand in, on demand out, simply how we have to create the pipes for this particular process. But you can also see here, for example, there's an MP3 encoding going on, and then it has the HLS segmentation that Gernot also talked about, and then it's uploaded to the CDN for on-demand distribution afterwards. That out of the way, actually, let's take a very quick look at the other options. The other options that are available. Important to note here that the inputs, outputs that you're choosing are fully cross-compatible. So no matter what kind of input you're using, it can work with any kind of output. Some other nice things that we're seeing here is the loudness control that Gernot has mentioned as an option. So this is our own loudness control based on R128. And here you also can see an example of like the settings that you are able to make. And of course, you can also include this in an audio on demand pipe. Right. Of course, if you have never seen this before and you want to get a deeper dive into it, then of course, please get in contact with us and we can show this in more detail to you. Now, onto the on-demand specifically. Now, what we're seeing here in the on-demand menu is a prepared job pool is what we call this. So this is basically one configured on-demand chain. So right now what we're seeing here is that this one is set up for a local input via push. So this means, something that is actually stored on the archive of the same system. It's currently paused, and there's a local upload. Of course, in most cases, you would have a CDN destination here, but for the sake of this example, this is all local. Now, if we actually edit this, you'll see that there's a lot that you can actually configure here, as you can see on the left-hand side. It's a very powerful system. It definitely has to be said. Though, for one thing, there's this wizard that you can see here that there's basically text to guide you on every single page, just to give you an idea. And there's, of course, a lot of options that may not be necessary for smaller use cases. The goal was to create something that is extremely flexible, that can be adjusted to any sort of workflow, and also enable lots of these cool features that Gernot talked about, like this metadata controlled splitting of the output, for example. I'm not going to go through every single thing here because I don't think there's much point that would have to be handled on a case-by-case basis, but just to give you an idea how it looks and also how the example looks that we're going to be processing here in a moment. So first we have the metadata input. As you saw earlier, it's a local transport, so it's just going to take files that are in the archive. but any sort of transport protocol is supported. So you can also easily take these inputs from external servers and so on. And the input here is the OD-in, which we're going to see in a moment. Jumping ahead to the metadata mapper, again, you're seeing lots of options. A lot of use cases won't meet these, obviously, but they are there for those that need them. Now, here's the cool thing that we wanted to show you specifically here. We have this tag mapping, and this is the function that we talked about, where a specific output can actually be sent to different destinations based on or even processed differently based on metadata, for example. So here we have an example where it specifically excludes any metadata that has Stefan, for the purpose of our example here, and one that is specifically for metadata with Stefan. And these will, as we will see in a moment, be processed separately and output separately. Things look much the same for the actual audio input as for the metadata input. So you have, of course, the transport that you can set, and also the destination extensions and so on and so on. And finally, of course, you're going to set the destination, that is to say, where the processed content is uploaded to. Again, as you can imagine, all common transport protocols are supported. Now, with this overview, let's have a look at the example that I want to show you. So we have, we're looking at the archive. So this is simply the stored files on the system. We have the OD-in, currently empty. The OD-out, also currently empty. And now we are going to upload two sets of audio files and XMLs. So right now, they are simply two sets of MP4s and XMLs. We're going to now start the processing. This will take a moment. When it's not running constantly, it'll take a moment until it actually finds and recognizes that that there's new files in the folders. And we can actually take a look back at the dashboard here. And yes, there you can see in the processing, we have now two jobs because we specifically told it to separate the output. And this should just take a minute before we get to see our output. Now, obviously, you could imagine the scenario also with different ingest points where multiple different servers are used for the ingest of either metadata or audio or both. And we're done. And now if we take a look at the archive OD-out, which was the output folder, now we have two separate, actually four separate, because we have both the simple audio files and the processed metadata, and also the segmented versions for HLS in two quality settings, 128 and 256 here. And as you can see, also separated by the metadata as we had configured prior. So that was a very quick look at aixtream in general and what our audio on demand processing can do. I hope this was an interesting look. Obviously, same as with the pipes, if you want to take a deeper look or have a very specific workflow that you want to ask us about, whether we can recreate this, then of course you are very welcome to contact us about this, and then we're going to see what we can do. And with that, I would like to give back to Virginie.
Yeah, thanks, Tobias. So if you like a personalized demo, do not hesitate to contact Tobias. He's always available for you. Now, Detlef, would you like to present the next software developments plan for 2022?
Yeah, of course, I'd like to. Thanks, Virginie. So it's my job to give you a bit of a brief outlook into the future. I would say more near future, not far future. So the keywords here for things coming up during this year and beyond is well, putting Xstream more in the cloud and cloud services of the Xstream software, which Tobias has introduced. We're also working on some more features to extend. It's a continuous process, actually. So like other protocols, whether it's really for the secure transmission or whether this is for more monitoring and control, a variety of purposes. Also loudness, which I think Gernot and Tobias addressed today as a very important part. And maybe I can also extend a bit my introduction from the very beginning when I said, okay, what's the team? So on the development team, where I also see that my friends and co-founders Bernd, Thomas, Hauke are also here in the webinar today. We have really highly expertised people with PhD research background in signal processing. So in order to develop such a software, of course, you need very broad IT knowledge, software development knowledge, but because it's audio, we also address, of course, processing. And on the processing side, it's a big advantage to have all this background that you have been learning and are familiar with. Beyond this, we also, because at the moment we address more the medium and bigger size broadcasters with our solution, we also extend our portfolio and are at the moment doing first pre-releases and testings with our FernLive app. It's a multi-platform app which is supposed to be launched, where we are also in touch with people from this group here participating in the webinar and other customers. Need to say that actually I'm very happy. I looked through the number of participants, very nice, and also that we are very, very international today. So from, I think, Spain to New Zealand, from Norway to Australia, so Singapore. So it's a very, very broad list of participants geographically. So that's in brief. And I think as you can also receive by our marketing department, where Virginie is in charge, regular news. So subscribe to our newsletter. I think you will see continuously extensions of functionality and cool news. And of course, we like to bring those news together with customers actually using our new implementations.
Thanks, Detlef. So I was looking in the chat now because we are coming to the end of our webinar. There was a lot of questions for Gernot Link, not a lot of answers regarding the quiz. So now we have an answer that Germany is ranking at position 16. We have 29 to...
Be great to get some more answers. 2 digits, you are quite okay, I think.
Yeah, it's between 5 and 29, to give a hint. We got 8. No, it's not 8. It's not 16. It's between 5 and 29. I think the winner will be the closest one if we don't get the exact rank. So let's have a look. So the more are coming. Yeah. We have 8, 11, 12. Well, the answer is 11. Germany was in the rank 11. So thanks a lot for your participation. We were really happy to host the webinar and to have you as a participant. Thanks again to Gernot Link for his great input to this webinar. And please feel free to contact Tobias if you have more questions regarding aixtream and the audio on demand processing. He's always willing to give you a personalized demo. And as Detlef said, register to our newsletter. We are already planning a next webinar soon. So I wish you all a nice day. And we are still in the room until 1 o'clock. So if you like to unmute you, if you have some question, we will still be there for the next 6 minutes in the room. Gernot Link is also still with us, so maybe we can get. There was more question for you. Gernot, so There was, for instance, one question which was, is there a difference in your workflow when you are processing a rebroadcast of live radio and processing native podcast?
I basically tried to answer some of the questions in the chat already, but for me, it makes no difference because it's data I get handed over from production and our broadcast processing things. So I just get files and I don't know if it's a native podcast creation or is it catch-up content coming from our linear program.
Have you already created your exclusive app?
Yes, we have created an app and we're still working on it hard to make it even more better and perhaps exclusive. I don't know. No, yes, we have our app and I just wrote in the chat, please check it out. There are some new features coming, I guess at the end of the month. For example, live time shifting based on HLS created with Ferncast encoders. And we'll hope that we can just start with podcast chapters also created by the encoder, but we're still doing some trials on there. And we really want to start having the user or enabling the user to switch his data rate and quality based on XHEAC for live and for on-demand podcasts, which is the nice thing, by the way, on the HLS protocol, because it works the same. It doesn't matter if you just do live HLS or it's called video on demand, but VOD playlists. So it's all the same, and all your user interfaces around there in the app can just handle live streams also with the same features like on-demand files. So it's a pretty nice thing on this kind of protocol.
Okay, and maybe the last question before we end the webinar. What size of hardware platform needs a Deutschlandradio Ferncast installation?
To be honest, it's not much. We have a virtual instance. I think each machine has at the moment 4 CPUs and 16 gig RAM. It's nothing really special or extraordinary.
Yeah, if I can hook in here for a moment. The thing, of course, with audio on demand processing is that unlike live streaming, we're constantly, well, the encoding is basically a constant process. Of course, with audio on demand, the processing happens, then it's done, it's uploaded, and then there's nothing else to do.
It sleeps again.
Exactly. So unless you have like an absurd amount of content that needs to be processed very quickly, like at a few minutes, you have the CPU and so on has a lot of time to actually process the content, upload it, and then it's, yeah, as Gernot said, is sleeping again. So because of this, it doesn't actually need to be anything big for audio on demand.
Thanks all for your participation. It was really nice to be there today. I wish you all a nice, still a nice day, afternoon, wherever you are, and hope to see you in our next webinar. Have a nice day. Bye.